The room went quiet so fast I could hear the air conditioner click on. 1 second, my husband was laughing with his boss, our baby tucked against my chest, his tiny fingers curled around my necklace. The next, I was staring straight at the man who had spent weeks telling strangers that my son wasn't my husband's, that I'd betrayed him, that our family was a lie. I didn't plan to speak. I didn't rehearse anything clever, but the anger rose anyway, hot, sharp, undeniable. "I don't believe we've met," I said, my voice calm in a way that surprised even me. "But aren't you the guy who went around telling everyone I cheated on my husband with a white or Asian man because this couldn't possibly be his baby?" His face drained of color. The boss's smile vanished. And in that moment, I realized something important. Some things don't stay buried just because other people are done with them. For years, my life revolved around calendars, ovulation trackers, and quiet prayers whispered into bathroom mirrors. My husband and I had been trying to conceive for so long that hope had learned how to bruise without breaking. Every month came with its own emotional choreography: anticipation, restraint, disappointment, recovery. We learned how to talk around it, how to make space for each other's grief without letting it swallow us whole. We're both Black. That fact never felt like it needed explanation, until it did. When I finally saw the positive test, my hands shook so badly I dropped it into the sink. I remember laughing and crying at the same time, pressing my palm against my mouth like I could physically keep the joy from escaping too early. The pregnancy wasn't easy, but it was ours. We documented everything: the blurry ultrasound photos taped to the fridge, the text messages to family, the way my husband would talk to my belly at night like our son could already hear him. By the time I went into labor, exhaustion and gratitude were tangled together so tightly I couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. When our son arrived, pink-cheeked, bright-eyed, impossibly small, I felt something in me lock into place, like the universe had finally said, "Here, you've waited long enough." My husband cried openly in the hospital room, holding our baby like he was made of glass. I watched them and thought, this is it. This is the life we fought for. We didn't know then how fragile peace could be. My husband went back to work 2 weeks after our son was born. Too soon, if you ask me, but bills don't care about postpartum recovery or sleepless nights. Before his first day back, he sent out a birth announcement to his office. Just a simple email. A photo of our baby swaddled in a blue blanket, his face turned toward the camera, eyes wide and curious. No fanfare, just pride. "Meet our son," it said. "Mom and baby are healthy. We're over the moon." He came home that evening with his jaw clenched so tightly I thought he might crack a tooth. He didn't even take his shoes off. "Someone at work said our baby isn't mine." The words didn't land right away. I laughed, a reflex, a defense mechanism. "That's not funny," I said when I saw his face. He told me everything. How a coworker, some new, younger guy my husband barely knew, had been running his mouth all day, telling anyone who would listen that our baby was too light, that his hair was too long and straight, that he looked like a white man's baby or an Asian's. As if babies come with DNA labels. As if Black newborns don't often start out lighter and darken over time. As if biology needs permission from ignorance. This guy didn't stop there. He called my husband a sucker, said love had blinded him, said I must have cheated and gotten pregnant by someone else. Strangers, co-workers, people my husband had to sit next to and work with, listening to someone casually dismantle our marriage and our family like it was office gossip. When my husband confronted him, the guy denied everything, claimed it was a joke, claimed he only said the baby was too cute to belong to my husband. But the damage was already done, and I wasn't there to defend myself. Here's the thing about postpartum anger. It doesn't announce itself politely. It simmers. It waits. While I fed our son at 3 a.m., while I memorized the soft sound of his breathing, while I watched my husband kiss his forehead before work every morning, I carried that story with me. That someone I had never met felt entitled to dissect my body, my marriage, my child. I knew the science. I knew the facts. Black babies are often born with lighter skin. Hair texture evolves. Anyone with half a brain or a quick internet search could figure that out. But this wasn't about ignorance alone. It was about audacity, about a man seeing a black family's joy and deciding it must be fraudulent. The office moved him to a different shift. Management considered the issue handled. My husband was relieved. He wanted peace, normalcy, closure. I nodded along because I love him. But inside me, something stayed unfinished. Weeks passed. Our son's skin deepened into a warm brown. His hair began to curl. He looked more and more like my husband every day. Same eyes, same expression when he frowned. Justice delivered by genetics. Then came the company event. Families invited. A sunny weekend afternoon that was supposed to be easy, safe, celebratory. I strapped our son into his carrier and told myself this was just another gathering, another smile and wave situation. I didn't know that the past was about to walk right up to us and stick out its hand. And I definitely didn't know I was about to speak the words that would change everything. Company events always smell the same to me. Overcooked catering food, cheap cologne layered too heavily, the faint chemical sweetness of industrial cleaner trying and failing to mask it all. There was laughter everywhere, the kind that sounds a little too loud because everyone knows the boss is nearby. I adjusted the strap of our baby carrier and leaned slightly into my husband's side. Our son slept against my chest, warm and solid and real, his breath puffing softly through his nose. My husband was mid-story, animated, hands moving as he talked to his boss about a project I'd heard about a dozen times already. I wasn't really listening. I was scanning. Old habit. New motherhood makes you hyper-aware of exits, of strangers, of anyone who looks at your child for a second too long. My eyes drifted across clusters of coworkers and spouses, pausing on faces I didn't recognize. And then I saw him. At first, it was just a shape, a man cutting through the group with the kind of confidence that only comes from believing you belong everywhere you decide to stand. He was smiling already, the smile of someone who enjoys inserting himself into conversations that weren't built for him. I felt it before my brain caught up, that drop in the stomach, that tight electric pull behind the ribs. No. He stepped closer. My husband stiffened beside me, so subtly I might have missed it if I wasn't married to him. His voice faltered for half a beat. The man slid in next to us, hand already extended toward the boss. "Hey, I don't think we've met. He said his name. The name I'd heard in anger, in disbelief, whispered late at night when my husband thought I was asleep. Brown Noser McMouth. The man who'd looked at a photo of my newborn and decided my marriage was a joke. The boss shook his hand, polite but distracted. "Nice to meet you." No one acknowledged me. No one acknowledged the baby. And something inside me snapped into terrifying clarity. I didn't raise my voice. That's the part people don't expect. I turned slightly, enough that he had to look at me, enough that he had to see the baby pressed against my chest, his tiny fist curled into my shirt like I was the only solid thing in the world. "I don't believe we've met," I said. My own voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone braver than me. "But aren't you the guy who went around telling everyone in the office that I must have cheated on my husband with a white or Asian man because this couldn't possibly be his son?" Silence isn't always quiet. Sometimes it roars. His face went blank first, then red, fast, blotchy, crawling up his neck like heat rash. His mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. The boss's head snapped toward him. "I'm sorry?" the boss said. My husband said my name, softly, a warning, a plea, but I couldn't stop now. The words had weight, momentum. I continued, still calm, still precise. "You said the baby was too light, that his hair was too straight. You called my husband a sucker, told people his excitement over finally becoming a father made him blind." Someone nearby inhaled sharply. The man shook his head, finally finding his voice. I never, this is inappropriate." The boss cut him off. "Is any of this true?" he asked. The man looked around, like the room might save him, like someone would laugh and call it a misunderstanding, a joke. No one did. The boss's jaw tightened. "See me in my office first thing Monday." He turned and walked away. Just like that. The man stood there, stripped of every ounce of swagger, eyes darting like a trapped animal. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at my husband. He just left. My heart started pounding then, hard enough to make me dizzy. People didn't know where to look. Some stared at the floor. Others suddenly found something fascinating across the room. Conversations restarted in awkward, uneven bursts, like an engine struggling to turn over. My husband finally exhaled. "What did you do?" he asked. Not angry, not loud, just stunned. I looked down at our son. He slept through all of it, blissfully unaware that his existence had just detonated someone else's career trajectory. "I told the truth," I said. We stepped outside a few minutes later, the noise of the event muffled behind us. The evening air was cooler, quieter. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing through me all at once. "That was already handled," my husband said, rubbing his face. "He was moved. It was over." I swallowed. My throat burned. "It wasn't over for me," I said. "I didn't get to be there when he said it. I didn't get to defend myself, or you, or our son." He was quiet. "I carried that," I went on, voice cracking despite my best effort. "Every feeding, every night, knowing some stranger thought he had the right to decide what our family looked like." My husband looked at our baby, then back at me. "You embarrassed him in front of the boss," he said. I nodded. "He embarrassed us first." The silence between us stretched, not hostile but heavy, processing silence. Finally, my husband reached out and squeezed my hand. "I get it," he said quietly. "I just wish it hadn't come to this." I leaned into him, exhaustion finally catching up. "So do I," said, "but wishing didn't protect us." Behind us, the party went on. Ahead of us, I didn't yet know what consequences Monday morning would bring, but for the first time since that email was sent, my chest felt lighter, like something unfinished had finally been said out loud. Monday came whether anyone was ready or not. I woke up before my alarm, the pale blue light of dawn barely filtering through the curtains. Our son stirred beside me, making those soft, kitten-like noises newborns make before they wake fully. I pressed my lips to his hair and breathed him in, steadying myself. My husband barely touched his coffee. "You don't have to update me minute by minute," I said gently, trying to ease the tension in his shoulders as he grabbed his keys. "I know," he replied, "but I probably will anyway." The hours stretched. I fed the baby, changed him, rocked him, tried not to imagine every possible version of what could be happening behind closed office doors. At 10:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Husband, he's done." No preamble, no emojis, just that. My heart stuttered. Me, done how? Several minutes passed. I pictured HR conference rooms, raised voices, denials unraveling under pressure. Then, fired, effective immediately. I sank onto the couch, the baby cradled against me, and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for weeks. Later, when my husband got home, he told me everything. Apparently, once the boss confronted him, the guy tried the same move again. I was joking, people are too sensitive. I didn't mean it like that. But HR had already pulled statements. Multiple coworkers corroborated the story. Not just what he'd said, but how often he'd said it. How confidently. There were emails, Slack messages, a pattern. And then there was something else. He'd been warned before. Not for racism, at least not officially, but for inappropriate commentary and creating a hostile work environment. My family wasn't an isolated incident. We were just the one that finally landed. They said what he did qualifies as harassment, defamation too. I looked down at our son, blissfully unaware. Good. The firing wasn't the end. It was the opening. A week later, my husband was called into another meeting, this time with HR and a legal rep. The company wanted to get ahead of anything else that might come from the situation. They apologized, formally, carefully, in that way corporations do when they know they messed up but don't want to say too much. They asked if we intended to pursue legal action. I hadn't even considered it, not because I didn't want accountability, but because, as Black people, we're trained to expect very little of it. But then they explained. The man hadn't just insulted us socially, he'd made public statements, false ones, about my fidelity, my character, and my husband's paternity, statements that damaged reputations in a professional setting. Defamation, harassment, racially charged misconduct. Suddenly, this wasn't personal anymore. It was documented. We spoke to a lawyer, then another. Calm, measured conversations that felt surreal compared to the raw anger that had fueled everything before. I sat there breastfeeding our son while a woman in a crisp blazer explained our options. Settlement, non-disclosure, mandatory sensitivity training for management, policy revisions. I thought about the weeks I'd spent feeling violated by a stranger's imagination. We don't want to ruin anyone's life, I said finally. The lawyer nodded. You want acknowledgement. Yes, I said, and protection for the next family. In the end, we didn't sue, but the company paid anyway, quietly. A settlement that included a formal apology and written acknowledgement of wrongdoing. The man signed an NDA. He wouldn't be telling any stories anymore. Months passed. Our son grew chubby and expressive, his smile unmistakably his father's. His curls came in soft and tight, defiant in the way genetics often are, patient but inevitable. Sometimes I'd catch my husband watching him with a look I couldn't quite name. Relief, maybe? Or pride sharpened by survival. The incident became a story we told less and less often, but its impact lingered. My husband's workplace changed. Policies tightened. Conversations shifted. People became more careful, not in a performative way, but in a thoughtful one. As for the man, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he struggled to find work in the same industry, that he complained about being misunderstood, that he told people he'd been canceled. I didn't feel guilty. I felt finished. Because revenge, I learned, doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be cruel. Sometimes it's just refusing to stay silent when silence is what someone is counting on. Sometimes it's saying one true sentence at the exact right moment, and then going home to hold your child, knowing you protected something sacred. When I look back now, I don't remember his face as clearly as I remember the sound of the room going quiet. That moment when truth entered and had nowhere else to go. That's the part that stays with me. Life didn't become perfect after that. It became quieter. Not in the sense that everything stopped, but in the way that chaos finally lost its grip on me. The kind of quiet that comes when you no longer replay conversations in the shower, when your shoulders drop without you telling them to, when anger stops waking you up at 2 a.m. Our son is older now. He laughs loudly, he crawls like he's late for something important, and he reaches for his father the moment he hears his voice. No hesitation, no doubt, because to him, paternity has never been a question. Love has always been the answer. My husband and I are stronger too, not because the world tested us, but because we chose each other in the middle of it, because he believed me when I said I wasn't done, because he stood beside me when I finally said the words out loud. Here's what I learned. Silence doesn't make things disappear. It just makes room for them to rot. Closure isn't about being polite. It's about being honest. And protecting your family doesn't always look gentle, but it is always necessary. That man thought he could reduce my life to a rumor, thought he could decide what blackness looks like, thought my joy needed his permission. He was wrong. And if you're listening to this right now, carrying something you were told to let go of before you were ready, know this. You're not dramatic. You're not bitter. You're not wrong for wanting accountability. Sometimes all it takes is one sentence at the right time in the right room. This has been Threaded Stories Daily, where real lives, real consequences, and real voices finally get the space they deserve. Subscribe and keep listening, because the next thread is already waiting.